Thank you all for joining us for the Missouri House District 131 Candidate Forum. We'd like to welcome the candidates and the audience to this forum for the Missouri House District 131. These community organizations on your screen are working together to put on a series of candidate forums with a shared goal of educating voters. We've brought together a coalition of community organizations to host a series of forums to engage candidates and voters before the August and November elections. These are the organizations who are involved and are also hosting their own candidate forums after the primary about various issues, as well as before the November election. Those organizations include Be Civil, Be Heard, Drury University's Ellie Metter Center for Politics and Citizenship, Junior League of Springfield, Leadership Springfield, League of Women Voters of Southwest Missouri, Missouri State University's Public Affairs Office, NAACP Springfield, Ozarks Technical Community College's Political Science Department, Ozarks Public Broadcasting KSMU Radio, Springfield Greene County Library District. Leadership Springfield is hosting these primaries this week, and the other partner organizations will be announcing and sharing the dates of their forums in the coming week. We want to make sure that you all know that the primary election will be held Tuesday, August 4th, 2020, and we encourage you to vote. We're going to talk a little bit now about Zoom and familiarize you all with how this forum will work. We invite you to submit a question to ask the candidates. To do this, you click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, type your question, please keep it concise. To have your name appear, you're just going to go ahead and click send. But if you'd like to remain anonymous, you can click anonymous. A representative sample of audience questions will be selected, and the moderator has the discretion to select which questions to ask. No part of this video may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, without the written permission of the copyright holder, which is Leadership Springfield. On your screen now, you will see the two candidates that will be discussing Missouri House District 131 today, Bill Owen and Stephanos Freeman. All right, now I'd like to introduce the candidates. Bill Owen, could you just raise your hand up a little so we can see you? We know who you are. Bill? Bill, you want to raise your hand so everyone knows who you are? There we go. Stephanos, you want to raise your hand so everyone can know who you are? Thank you so much. Here's the format for this forum. This is a forum, not a debate, and it will be a civil conversation. It will be
what now?
This is a forum and not a debate. It will be a civil conversation between candidates about the issues. The candidates will engage in a respectful conversation about why they are running for this position, why they are a qualified candidate, what their policy positions are, and how they would serve in this position if elected. This forum is 1 hour in length. The forum will be recorded and posted to websites, and we will give you those website addresses at the conclusion of this forum. Questions have been submitted by the partner organizations, and then we will take audience questions. The candidates' names were randomly drawn to determine who will go first. Questions will be asked of each candidate on a rotating basis. Opening and closing statements are 2 minutes each, and I will give you a 30-second warning and a stop when your time is up. When you see the stop, please conclude your statement, and we will move on. Opening and closing statements are 2 minutes. Every other question is 1 or 2 minutes. I will state the length of the question before I read the question. There will be no opportunity for rebuttal, although you as candidates are welcome to use your 2-minute closing statement to address or clarify something that is brought up earlier in the forum if you run out of time or you'd like to have a rebuttal. Now we are going to begin with the first question. The candidate names, we're going to begin with the opening statements. The candidates were drawn out of a random drawing to decide who would be going first with opening statements. And Bill Owen, you are going first with your 2-minute opening statement. I'll give you a second to unmute yourself, Bill.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Bill Owen. I am a lifelong resident of Springfield and Greene County. I have for about nearly the past 40 years have been in the banking community here in Springfield, And as I approached my retirement, I started thinking about what I want to do with the next phase of my life. I still felt like I had some gas in the tank, and so I started thinking about different options, and I gravitated towards this position. I actually served in the Missouri House back in the 1980s, early in my career, and so I have some experience there. I know what I would be getting into, and it just seemed like a natural to gravitate towards it. And so in the end, that's what I've decided to do. I've been very involved in the community. I've served on 2 different social service not-for-profits on their board for about 30 years. I'm a past chair of the Chamber of Commerce Governmental Relations Committee. I chaired the Governmental Relations Committee for the Missouri Bankers Association, my trade organization. So I've just had extensive background and just felt like I could maybe give back and be able to hit the ground running and do an effective job for the people of the 131st District.
Thank you. Stefanos, you can unmute yourself and you can give a 2-minute opening statement. We will start your time after you are unmuted.
You ready?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Stefanos Freeman. I'm from this area. I've lived here my entire life. I'm 48 years old. I really actually did not want to run for this office, but I felt compelled because of basically the lack of respect for the working class. There's basically a few things I think that basically qualify me. One is I actually do work for a living. 2, I have worked for non-for-profits, be it Burrell as a detox technician. I worked in Springfield Public Schools, and I also worked with mentally disabled people. What I found is a major disconnect between the people that say they run things and the people who actually do things on the ground floor. I think it's really important that we narrow that gap between the people who make the laws and the people who actually have to live by the laws. I really don't think it's good for people to have too much involvement as far as already having established ties as far as their finances and their friends, because that's really what happens, is that we end up having a conflict of interest with the people that end up getting there. If you look at who actually is in the state assembly right now, at least as far as the House goes, of the 163 people there, virtually all of them, the vast majority of them, are either lawyers or businessmen. No one really has the interest of the regular person at heart. Next of all, I mean, I do actually have a degree in sociology, so there are larger global issues that are happening right now. And as far as fighting the left, I'm your guy. I know what their terminology is. I know what their methods are. And I think we really can be aggressive here and make their problem and not ours. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to questions. And Bill, you will get the first round of these questions, and then Stefanos, you'll get time to answer as well. This question is 2 minutes, and I will read the question before each of you has an opportunity to answer. Bill, how will you work to increase job opportunities for your constituents? You have 2 minutes.
Well, that's a pretty far-flung question. There's a lot of ways we can go about it. Something that I did 40 years ago when I authored part of Kit Bond's legislative agenda to create enterprise zones is that we provided incentives to leverage money from the private sector into new development. This has been very effective. We probably need to look at tying it into the opportunity zones, which is what has come out of the federal legislation. And so I think we'll look at maybe some enabling legislation to go along with that. Another thing is to keep it business friendly, keep it to where you don't have too much litigation. You want to make it friendly where businesses want to come to Missouri. So there's a lot of those type things that we can also look at. It's not a one thing that will solve that issue. It's coming at it from multiple directions.
Thank you. Stephanos, here's the question. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself while I read the question, and then you'll have 2 minutes to respond. How will you work to increase job opportunities for your constituents? You have 2 minutes.
Actually, I'm not really sure why this hasn't been done. I've heard about it years ago, and I was thinking about it myself. If you think about it, our tax rate's around 5%. We have a lot of maneuverability as far as getting tax breaks for what we consider blighted areas. The northern part of Springfield has really been decimated over the years. There's not really much to do. And whenever you go over here, all the money you're spending is going elsewhere, because when you do stuff, you don't do them in Northwest Springfield. So I think that would be one of the biggest things I'd want to do, is make sure that we had something along those lines. Another one, of course, is educational opportunities. Right now, if you take one class, just one class, and just to, do a little bit on top of yourself, you end up having to spend about $300 or so on student fees last time I checked. So essentially, what you're doing is doubled. So you can, give educational opportunities, business opportunities. Really, that's where we need to focus. As far as business being hindered, I don't think either me or my opponent would actually have anything unbusiness friendly involved there.
Thank you. Okay, since we're alternating each question, who goes first? Stephanos, actually, you're first on this next question, and then Bill. This is a 1-minute question. Stephanos, I'll let you unmute yourself while I read the question. Where do you see opportunities for different political parties to find common ground and start to bridge the divide? You have 1 minute.
Oh, boy. Basically, that's actually one of the things I kind of like to look into. What we need to do is start coming up with common terms, common languages. I work with a fair number of foreigners, and I tell you what, things actually get along better once they start understanding what it is you're saying. And quite frankly, that's what's been going on right now. The Republicans and the Democrats largely speaking foreign languages. And part of that is you have to look to see what it is they want to get as far as the big term. And as far as inside the House, it's really a matter of trying to get away from the global issues that are going into what we actually have in common as Missourians. A lot of stuff really is going, or a lot of the issues really has been coming from outside Missouri, which actually goes to the last one. I mean, we could probably agree that we probably need labeling for Missouri meat. I mean, that's a local product. It's good for Missouri. I'm not sure why we couldn't come to common terms with that. And from there, we can go on. I mean, there's common things that helps out everybody in education, for instance. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, I'll read the question and then you'll have 1 minute to answer. Where do you see opportunities for different political parties to find common ground and start to bridge the divide?
Well, interestingly enough, as I've been watching over the last year or so, I want to compliment Speaker Har. I think he has actually been working towards this. Go back to my previous time up there when Bob Griffin was the speaker. You would have never seen the speaker appoint a person from the minority party to chair a committee in the House. Representative Prouty from St. Louis, who is a member of the Democratic caucus, actually chairs one of the committees up there. She even had a big cleanup in the Kinloch area of St. Louis, where people had just been dumping, and a bunch of the Republican representatives went up there and helped the cleanup this weekend. Plus, some of those that couldn't make it gave money. I think I really get a sense that the current leadership is really trying to promote better relationships between the two caucuses. We just need to keep it going.
Okay, thank you. Bill, you will get the first round of this next question. This is a 2-minute question. Bill, one of the basic functions of the Missouri General Assembly is to fund our public schools, a requirement spelled out in the Missouri Constitution. How will you work to ensure all students receive equal educational opportunities no matter where they live? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, from a funding standpoint, we have up the last few years actually met the funding formula that's been created. So we are fully funding the schools. The second part of that question I would view as everyone getting a quality education. I can't say that's the case today. We have a couple school districts up in the St. Louis area that aren't meeting standards. And I think we have to be creative as far as giving other options to these kids, because every young person deserves an opportunity to a good education. And so we might open up other options like they have already in St. Louis and Kansas City, where you can go across district lines, or maybe even consider a charter school if the district is not meeting standards. So both funding wise, we've been there. Now, remember, we're right in the middle of the coronavirus, and the governor just cut $450 million, and we might. Are you still there? Hello? Hello?
We are. You can continue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I thought I'd lost y'all there. So let's see. Now I got to remember my train of thought. When I was talking about if Medicaid passes, again, that's going to be another hit. We've got to find, for the state portion, we've got to go in now and find monies from other areas. It's going to be difficult to keep taking hits like this and be able to still fully fund the foundation formula. Though within time we'll get back, the economy will get going and we'll be back. But I would say we'll continue to fund the foundation formula, the funding formula.
Thank you. Stephanos, you can unmute yourself while I read the question and then you can answer. 2 minutes. One of the basic functions of the Missouri General Assembly is to fund our public schools, a requirement spelled out in the Missouri Constitution. How will you work to ensure all students receive equal educational opportunities no matter where they live? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, that's actually one of the problems. We want to go and talk about equal opportunity. And, well, first of all, we're not really honest about ourselves about how much we really want to get that done. We keep on coming up with problems that can never really be solved. But that being said, the biggest problem with education is not really the funding. It's the kids being prepared to be in school at all, really, which would have to do with early, or at least what we need to do is come up and have more early education programs. Really, there's so many students that want to be disruptive that we are so focused on the lowest common denominator, we're not really even excelling as schools. We really need to start thinking about having goal-oriented education where they have specific skills, maybe have a general diploma that has basic skills where you have independent testing, and then have certifications. So say you can have a certification that says that you're certified to speak so well in Spanish, or you can conduct these things in industrial arts. Or, I mean, basically any of the extracurriculars, you could actually have a certification and you can expand upon that and actually have more actual abilities. I really don't think funding is really the biggest problem. We can make do. Actually, it might be nice if we didn't just have it strictly on attendance basis, because that's why the kids are pretty well taking over the schools, is because people are so worried about the kids not being there that they'll do anything to make sure they are there. And so we're not really having discipline in the schools, and that's something we need to worry about big time. I think that's pretty well it. All right.
Okay. Okay, Stephanos, you'll be first on this next question as we alternate. You will have 1 minute to answer this question, and then Bill, you'll have 1 minute to answer the same question. Stephanos, you can unmute yourself while I read the question. Clean Missouri, the constitutional amendment passed by Missouri voters in 2018, requires a nonpartisan demographer to draw new legislative districts after the 2020 census. Amendment 3 is on the November ballot and seeks to repeal Clean Missouri. Do you support Clean Missouri, and why or why not?
Yeah, Clean Missouri, there's positives and negatives to anything we're doing. I mean, that really depends on how it ends up working out. I think what we have right now actually works fine. overall, I mean, having it done based on geography, if we really look into it, the voters did pass it. I'm not sure why they just decided they didn't want to go ahead and implement it. They pass it again, you pretty well don't need to be getting in the way. You need to let the voters decide on what they're doing, or as far as what the laws are. Now, as far as, I mean, there is potential for gerrymandering, but that really has to do with the offices that are in charge and just the legislator making sure that they're responsible for doing their duties. They don't have any really funny lines. I mean, Bill probably has a better idea what the district lines are, but from what I've seen when I looked at it, they look just fine. So that's just, if the voters like it, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. I think there is probably plenty of room for more people to be represented than who are being represented right now. But
Thank you. Bill, you will have 1 minute to answer this question. You can unmute yourself while I read the question. Clean Missouri, the constitutional amendment passed by Missouri voters in 2018, requires a nonpartisan demographer to draw new legislative districts after the 2020 census. Amendment 3 is on the November ballot and seeks to repeal Clean Missouri. Do you support Clean Missouri, and why or why not? This is a 1 minute question.
Well, there are mainly two parts to this. One was redistricting. The other part was for lobbyist contributions as far as buying dinners and anything over a few dollars. The lobbyist thing, I mean, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. But quite frankly, there was no issue. I mean, I've been around state politics for close to 50 years now, and nobody had a problem with this. All of a sudden, this thing gets on the ballot and we're told there's an issue. I mean, the two political parties select who they want. They get together. Now, 3 of the last 4 times they've not been able to agree. What happens? It goes to a panel of appellate judges. So are we now saying that the appellate judges at 3 of the last 4 times that drew the lines somehow were weighting the scale one way or another? I don't really think so. So they're just trying to get it back more to where it was. The demographer, I believe there's only been 2 people last time I heard that have applied. Neither one of them I saw had what I would call stellar credentials. I think it's just a red herring.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Bill, you'll have the first opportunity to answer this question, followed by Stephanos. You will each have 1.5 minutes to answer this question. Bill, you'll be first. Here's the question. What areas of public policy are you personally passionate about, and why? You have 1.5 minutes.
Probably one of the things that I'm most passionate about is people with disabilities. As I said in my opening remarks, I served on 2 different social service not-for-profit boards where we worked with people with disabilities. I just thoroughly enjoyed that. I also have a situation in my family of mental health issues, and so that's also something that I want to be involved with. We did a great job in putting this acute care program together between Burrell and Cox, but the problem is it's on a rotating basis. They take care of them for a while, they get back out on the street, they stop taking their meds in some cases, and then they're right back, and it's just a revolving door. And we really need to come up with a long-term solution. Right now, 60% of the inmates in the Greene County Jail, and this is from Harold Bench, their underlying issue is mental health. We need to be helping these people in the right setting with the right people working with them, not just throwing them in the jail, let them out, then throw them right back in the jail. You're tying up the courts, you're tying up the jail cells, you're tying up the police officers who are constantly having to deal with these people. It's a real area I really want to focus on, that and the housing stock in these older neighborhoods.
Stephanos, you have an opportunity to answer this question, 1.5 minutes. You can unmute yourself while I read the question. What areas of public policy are you personally passionate about, and why? You have 1.5 minutes.
Number one, I just want Missouri to be Missouri. I'm really kind of getting a little tired of the common folk just being basically talked down to. We have this real crazy leftist agenda going on, and I really don't particularly care for it. They have this social constructionist and structural mechanisms they want to talk about, and I actually understand this terminology, and it's the road to nowhere. My degree actually was in sociology, which actually brings me to another part of my education. That was that I was certified to teach history, which it was actually confounding, even when I was a kid, how many people actually did not know much about history, and that's actually even the teachers. That actually has gotten a lot better, by the way. There's really been too much focus on coaching, for instance. I mean, I know that's everybody's favorite. Really, that's really what I don't particularly care for, especially with the political segment, is there's so many people that all want something. You look at these questionnaires and everybody, the politicians who are running are just carbon copies of whatever the policy said or whatever the party says they should be. And we need to get away from that. So yeah, I mean, there's education, there's the morals of our state being the state, and there is the disconnect between the people that are running and actually regular people and trying to come up with national issues and global issues and trying to turn that into what Missourians should be all about rather than Missourians being about Missourians.
Okay, Stephanos, next question. You'll go first, followed by Bill. This will be a 1-minute question. I'll read the question and then you'll have time to respond. Stephanos, the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry supports Amendment 2. In their statement of support, they stated it is, quote, a pro-jobs measure that will help fuel economic growth throughout our state. According to economic projections, expanding Missouri's Medicaid program will boost job creation by 16,000 jobs per year for 5 years. Likewise, passage will expand our state's economic output by $2.5 billion, end quote. Do you support Amendment 2, the expansion of Medicaid in Missouri? You have 1 minute to answer this question.
Just like Clean Missouri, this is one of those things where we just need to get it done where people want to get done. I can see the pluses and the negatives there. I understand there's, particularly among Republicans, there's a concern about socialized medication or socialized medicine being done. This might just be something that has to be done in order to keep other people from going along this leftist ideology. Actually could be used to actually free up people, the workers, so that they can, rather than being stuck in a bad job, they can actually get a better job. A small business will actually, they will make sure, or they'll put this on their plans. They will work with these, and so it's actually going to free up small businesses to not necessarily have to pay as many benefits, so it actually gives the edge to small businesses rather than other ones. I mean, there is so many positive and negatives, but I mean, we just need to get done.
Thank you. Bill, you have 1 minute to answer this question. The Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry supports Amendment 2. In their statement of support, they stated that it is, quote, a pro-jobs measure that will help fuel economic growth throughout our state. According to economic projections, expanding Missouri's Medicaid program will boost job creation by 16,000 jobs per year for 5 years. Likewise, passage will expand our state's economic output by $2.5 billion, end quote. Do you support Amendment 2, the expansion of Medicaid in Missouri? You have 1 minute.
Well, I mean, I support what they're trying to do. They couldn't have picked a worse time in the world financially for the state of Missouri to do it, because we're just going to have to look at cutting some other areas. Quite frankly, we're going to have to try and see if there are some ways where we can save some money through this. Maybe the mental health piece, or fund some of that into some of these people that are in jail and elsewhere, and put them in a proper facility for less money. We can save some money there. But that's my biggest concern, is we just flat don't have the money right now without going in and gutting some other programs. And we've already done it once. It means we're going to have to turn around and do it again. But I mean, I don't have a problem with people getting Medicaid coverage.
All right, Bill, you will go first on this next question. You will have one.
I'm through.
Okay, you will go first on this next question. You will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Here's the question. Bill, the NAACP issued a travel advisory for the first time ever for the state of Missouri in 2017, after Senate Bill 43 was passed by the state legislature, making it extremely difficult for employees to sue for discrimination based on race, gender, and/or religion. The advisory remains in effect due to the high frequency of racist incidents in our school districts, on college campuses, in the healthcare system, and in law enforcement. What anti-racist actions are you taking personally, and what legislation would you propose to dismantle racism in all institutions in Missouri? You have 1.5 minutes to answer the question.
Well, I mean, I don't know where to begin. Quite frankly, I don't look at things from a racial standpoint. Quite frankly, my son-in-law is of mixed race. I don't have any racist thoughts in my. So it's hard for me to even. But as far as legislation, I mean, it's really, as far as any particular bill or anything that needs to be introduced. I just, I'm sorry, this is just one that I just don't view things, it's just hard for me to even come up with anything right now. I haven't followed that advisory from 17. That's new to me. So, but I can just tell you about myself personally, and as in the legislature, I would do anything in my power to eliminate any type of preferences or prejudices for any sex, religion, creed, what have you. Thank you.
Okay, Stephanos, you will have 1.5 minutes to answer this question. I'll read the question and then you can begin. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself. The NAACP issued a travel advisory for the first time ever for the state of Missouri in 2017, after Senate Bill 43 was passed by the state legislature, making it extremely difficult for employees to sue for discrimination based on race, gender, and/or religion. The advisory remains in effect due to the high frequency of racist incidents in our school districts, on college campuses, in the healthcare system, and in law enforcement. What anti-racist actions are you taking personally, and what legislation would you propose to dismantle racism in all institutions in Missouri? You have 1.5 minutes.
What we're talking about here is the institutional structural racism thing. This is basically just not true. How they define racism is prejudice with power. If anything, it's flipped. I mean, anybody who is a race other than white can say that they have had all kinds of things happen to them based on race, regardless of whether it happens or not. I mean, for instance, you take the school districts. I mean, I sit in the teachers' break rooms and had, teachers that really the only thing racist about it is they know that they can't treat those students the same as they treat everybody else. I had there was one lady who literally had a African American come in and accused her of racism because she failed her son, and she's like, "Well, I need to keep my son away because he's black." It's one of those things where we talk about a system, and everybody talks about all the structures and all the institutions, but they completely neglect the fact that everybody is part of the system. The NAACP is part of the system. Them talking about this and framing it this way actually is part of the problem. It's structural in that they benefit from making this an issue that's not really an issue. Really, people just have to have a dialogue with everybody like they're a normal person, because they are a normal person. I've had plenty of conversations with people at work, all over the place. Okay. Here's my time's up.
Okay, Stephanos, you will go first on this next question. This is a 2-minute question. And then Bill, you'll have 2 minutes as well. Stephanos, Missouri is the only state in the United States that does not have a prescription drug monitoring program, PDMP. According to the National Alliance for Model State Drug Laws, a PDMP is a statewide electronic database which collects designated data on substances dispensed in the state. Will you support a PDMP for Missouri? Why or why not? You have 2 minutes.
No, I won't. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure the people that have pain, that need pain pills, don't get them. And somehow that's going to make everybody else do fine. What they end up doing is they end up taking away a person's prescriptions so that they can't have medications. And then those people go from their medications to taking heroin and illicit drugs because they're in excruciating pain. It's actually pretty frustrating because we go on and we try to solve these issues of people having abuse. And, you know, if a person wants to be treated, they'll be treated. But all this does is create unnecessary regulation on something that is basically chasing your tail. If you actually did do this and make it work, well, then I mean that would be great. But that's you have to look at what ends up happening in the long term. And I really don't think that that's what's going to end up happening in the long term. Yeah.
Thank you. Bill, I'll read the question and then you'll have 2 minutes to respond. Bill, Missouri is the only state in the United States that does not have a prescription drug monitoring program, PDMP. According to the National Alliance for Model State Drug Laws, a PDMP is a statewide electronic database which collects designated data on substances dispensed in the state. Will you support a PDMP for Missouri? Why or why not?
Yes, I will. It got right down to the wire last day of the session, and got caught up in the Senate and didn't get passed. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think it's something we need to go to, and so I will support it if it comes up while I'm up there.
Okay, that concludes part of our questioning. We do have some audience questions, so I will share those audience questions now. For the audience questions, the first one will be 1 minute, and Stephanos, you will have the first chance to respond, and followed by Bill. Again, you have 1 minute to respond, timely, as the City Council has just started debating this, but what are your thoughts on mandatory masking? Stephanos, you have 1 minute. Stephanos, you are muted, so go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll restart your 1 minute time.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I actually was going to show up to this, but I had to, you know, do what I have to do as far as keeping my commitments. Yeah, we don't need the mandatory masking. I mean, actually, I think most people would have went along with it if they would have done this from the very beginning. But at this point, we've already had enough go on. Mandatory masking to most people who aren't wearing it would just be degrading. The amount of the benefits are probably relatively minuscule. I think really that's the businesses, for all practical purposes, could get this done for what it actually solves as far as people being around one another, because no one's going to say you can't, you know, require a mask in the business. It just undermines the authority of the city, and it made themselves look like a joke already. You know, no, it just is a, 30 seconds, I have that much time, okay. Yeah, they just need to relax. There's other ways of doing this, and we will get through this together, but we need to make sure that we don't go out when we're sick. That's the number one thing. And if there's going to be penalties, it should be against people who come out sick. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, I'll give you a moment to unmute yourself and then read the question, and you'll have a minute as well to respond. Bill, what are your thoughts on mandatory masking?
As long as we're keeping these decisions made at the local level, I don't have a problem. What I don't have a problem with is if we try and do masking statewide or nationally. We need to allow the local health authorities determine what's best in that given area, and then rely upon the health leaders to help guide us in that. And as long as we keep it at the local level where each local community can make their own decisions, then I'm fine with it. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Bill, you'll be first on this next question. This is also an audience question, and then Stephanos, you will have a chance to answer. The question is, Bill, you have 2 minutes to answer this question. Do you support public money going to private schools? You'll need to unmute yourself, and then we will start the time.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big supporter of that. I think parochial schools need to be funded, and I assume that the question was directed towards charter schools. The only time I'm interested in charter schools is when a public school district is not performing at a level to provide a quality education for the children. But as long as they are performing at a good quality level, then I don't see any reason to be putting public money into private schools or charter schools.
Thank you. Stephanos, we have another question, and it is a 1-minute question, and then Bill, you'll have an opportunity to answer. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Thank you. I'm going to ask the same question, and then we'll move on. Thank you for your patience there. Stephanos, do you support public money going to private schools? You have 2 minutes to answer.
Yeah, as far as vouchers and private schools, I mean, we are talking about the charter schools. I don't think there's a whole lot of market for that in this area. I really don't have a problem with it. It would make, I'm not sure, as Bill had mentioned earlier about Medicaid, it's kind of one of those things, I'm not sure if this is the right time to be messing with public money. That said, I really don't have a problem with a private organization trying to come in here and create a charter school and give people school choice. I think that's more going to be more of a St. Louis and Kansas City situation, which is actually already going on. So I don't see that it being a problem, but I can't say I'm opposed to it. So I actually support having the savings accounts and having charter schools. Like I said, I don't see it actually happening here, but I mean, it could to some degree. Just to have different choices, and ironically enough, on the lobbyists, the ones lobbying for the principals, they wanted, or at least they used, the performance of the schools by standardized testing as a reason to get rid of charter schools. But yet we always hear how all the teachers and the principals are against using that for the funding of their schools. And so, I think the more competition we have, the better we are at. I think it might actually help with innovation. I think a lot of things we have actually can be streamlined, and more options is good. So yeah, I actually support that.
Okay, now we will move on to the next question. And Stephanos, you'll actually have the opportunity to answer this question first, followed by Bill. This is a 1-minute question, and I'll read the question, and then you'll have time to respond. Stephanos, what are your thoughts regarding term limits? Do you think they benefit democracy? You have 1 minute.
It's actually kind of interesting. I don't have a problem with term limits, really, because if you can't get anything done in 8 years, then you really need to go on and do something else anyway. Now, when people talk about this, they do need to keep in consideration that, especially because as far as the state assembly goes, I don't think it's an issue at all. But when it comes to, say, your senators and your congressmen, do keep in mind that those are majorly expensive campaigns, and that whenever you do that and have term limits, what you're going to do is you're going to end up just giving lobbyists more power, People that are there are just going to, if they are corrupt, they're going to just sell out quick. If they're not, well, I mean, that's good. That's what we want to see there. But the type of things we're wanting to get accomplished with that, I'm not sure you actually get accomplished. But yeah, I mean, that's oops. Okay. Well, I guess my time's up. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, Bill, you'll have 1 minute to answer this question. You can go ahead and unmute yourself while I ask the question. What are your thoughts regarding term limits? Do you think they benefit democracy?
Absolutely, and I saw it firsthand. And I would contend that in some aspects we already had term limits. It was for the really sharp, capable legislators who, after a few terms, would say, you know, I really enjoy this, but man, I got to get home and make some money. It was the let's say the ones who maybe weren't quite as sharp and capable that were there for 25, 30, 35 years. So, you know, we were already terming out our best and our brightest. Now we're just terming everybody out. And I could go on anecdotal situations I could talk about that. I mean, I just walked away from Jeff City saying, you know what, we need term limits. It will be a positive thing. Now, is 8 years the perfect answer? I don't know that it is. Some people have said, well, why don't you just say, instead of 8 in the House and 8 in the Senate, just say 16 total, and you can split it up however you want to. Either way is fine with me. And as far as this institutional knowledge, we could go back and hire a few former legislators from different eras if we're missing institutional knowledge. So we have a way of getting around any issues with, you know, the lobbyists being in control and all that.
Okay, thank you. We have another question, and Bill, you will take this question first, and then Stefanos, this is a 2-minute question. I'll read the question and then you can answer. Bill, what are your thoughts on criminal justice reform? Would we be better served as a state to focus on funding for community services like mental health, trauma-informed schools, and restorative justice programs? You have 2 minutes.
Well, you know, we just finished passing a bill, Bruce DeGroote's bill, and it was Senate Bill 600, which did a lot of these things. But as I was talking earlier about from the mental health standpoint, absolutely, we don't need to be incarcerating these people. We need to get them, if they have mental health issues, we need to get them in a mental health facility with the right experts. If it's a minor crime that's not a violent type crime, we need to be looking on how we can get that person rehabilitated and back into society. There's that Senate bill was a good start, and I think the governor signed it yesterday or the day before. But we can probably do some more. But that was a very, very good start.
Thank you, Stefanos. I will read the question, and then you will have 2 minutes to respond. What are your thoughts on criminal justice reform? Would we be better served as a state to focus on funding for community services like mental health, trauma-informed schools, and restorative justice programs? You have 2 minutes.
Well, I mean, anything we could do in the schools, that'd be nice. First of all, I'd like to address the red herring in the room there. One is, would probably be good to have maybe 10-minute delayed live streaming sometimes, maybe on a random basis on the old body cams. That would make certain members of the community feel a lot better about the chances of them being abused, and also would protect the cops also, knowing that their actions are being verified by video camera. Now, mental health, that's really going to be a fraction of the people that are in the penitentiaries. Rehabilitation really only works for the people that want to be rehabilitated. There's so many people you could just tell when they were going in there that they weren't going to stay because they really didn't want to be there. And then other people, they want to be there, and then, people call them up and they decide they don't want to be there anymore. That's just one of those things a person really has to have commitment to themselves. We didn't really think about where we're putting our money. So yeah, I'm not really into the violent crimes. That's really what we're talking about here. Anytime they talk about justice reform, what they're talking about is the drug war. And we rethink that and etch that on back a bit there as far as the people that are just users, because what we're doing right now is we're giving the radical left ammunition to decide. I mean, well, like Black Lives Matter, for instance, that's if you just look at m4bl.org, it gives you their platform, and they want to take away everything that is in America. I mean, and so if we don't want a socialist agenda being done in America, we need to make big changes as far as making sure there's a Black family that is there. And quite frankly, how the justice system is right now, it's not going to happen.
Thank you both for answering questions tonight. We are going to move into our closing statement section. Stephanos, you will have the opportunity to go first. Bill, you will have the opportunity to go second. Your closing statements can be 2 minutes long each. We'll give you a 30-second warning as well as a stop. And then we have a few more things to wrap up, and then we will conclude tonight. We'll start with Stephanos for your closing statement. You have 2 minutes.
Have you ever noticed we're in a culture war right now? I can tell you basically why things happen and how they're going to happen. We need to know what the problems are. I've been on the ground floor of education, disabilities, and rehabs. I got a good idea what's going on there. And me and my friends aren't getting paid. I don't know anybody that's getting paid, so there's no conflict of interest. Jeff City's problems and DC's problems have become our problems. Well, they're solving this family, they're dissolving our institutions of education, police, schools, businesses, and even the church. The Second Amendment in St. Louis, there's somebody that, a couple that's actually being charged with possessing a firearm for just defending themselves. What you need is a warrior, someone who takes on the offense. Based on my sociology, I know how that conflict theory and structural racism paradigm works, and so I can actually go into their committees and undermine the committees by undermining their definitions and their models, picking it apart. Right now we have global effort versus a national effort within the United States. You basically have big tech, big businesses, universities, and civil servants unions pushing for a global agenda to strip us from the 1/3 GDP that we have, the 1/3 energy use that we have, so they can get 10, 15, 20% bonuses on their stocks and their investments rather than 3, 5, and 7% off of them. If you've noticed there, the donors for Republicans for big oil real estate, if you look at national versus global, look at what the issues that they come up with, anywhere from individual rights, private sector, to big business, to religion, to healthcare, to mandated wages, to police, military, and climate change. All of those things, if you look at them, over on there, one side is the global people and the Democrats, and the other side is Republicans, and that's going to affect us in our state. We need to prepare and prepare wisely.
Okay, Bill, I'll let you unmute yourself, and then we can have you give your 2-minute closing statement. You may proceed.
Well, first of all, Carrie, I'd like to thank you and all the participants and all the organizations, the sponsors, for putting something like this on. You know, I've never gone through a campaign season as a volunteer or what have you over the years like this, where there's just really very limited interaction. This is, quite frankly, the first time Stephanos and I have been discussing at the same time. We've never even met. So I applaud you for doing this. I applaud him for joining us. And I look forward to the opportunity if the voters decide to allow me to represent them. As I said in the beginning, I don't have a big agenda, except I just feel like that with my experience, that I would just like to spend a few more years productively before I call it quits and retire and fade into the sunset, and hope that my skill set is what maybe the voters are looking for. But we'll leave it to them and let the chips fall where they may. And thank you all very much.
Thank you both for your comments today, your answers to the audience questions, and as well as the questions provided by the partners for all the candidate forums, and for your opening and closing statements. I'm going to share your contact information here. So if any of you who are listening to this call live or watching it online later, you can contact either candidate with the below information. I'll give you just a second to record this information or view this information if you'd like. I want to share a little bit of information about voting, both in person and absentee. So the deadline to register for the August 4th primary election has already passed. The deadline to register for the November 3rd general election is October 6th. You may vote absentee now through Monday, August 3rd at 5 p.m. Go to the Greene County Clerk's office at 1126 North Boonville Avenue. To vote in person on Election Day, Tuesday, August 4th, polls are open from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. If you have questions, you can always call the Greene County Clerk's office at 417-868-4055. Absentee mail-in ballots. To request an absentee mail-in ballot, you may go to the Greene County Clerk's office, or you can send a written request to the Greene County Clerk at 940 Boonville, room 113. Your absentee request must be received by the Greene County Clerk's office by July 22nd at 5 p.m. Notarization of ballots. An absentee mail-in ballot must be notarized unless you meet an at-risk requirement, which includes you are confined due to illness or disability or are caring for someone, you are 65 years or older, live in a long-term care facility, or have a chronic disease. Ballots must be received by the Greene County Clerk's office by 7 p.m. on August 4th. Please do not wait to mail in your ballot. As I mentioned at the beginning, this forum has been recorded and it will be posted by the end of the week on these websites, ksmu.org, thelibrary.org, and leadershipspringfield.org. As a reminder, no part of this video may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, without the written permission of the copyright holder, Leadership Springfield. Again, the primary election is Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. I want to thank you to the candidates. Thank you for participating. Thank you for the hard work of running a campaign and for being a part of our democracy. To our audience today and as well online, listening online later, please support your candidate. But if your candidate is not elected, it is your job to keep an open dialogue with whoever is elected. Thank you all for participating and sharing your views with the public. We hope you have a wonderful evening.